So I'm going to do a screen share for this. And so the idea isn't trying to explain what NFTs are, because a lot of people have done that all over the place. So like what they are in like an economic sense. So instead, what I'm going to do is share what they are in a really low level, kind of more computer sense. And with that, hopefully Creative Commons can see how it fits into perhaps how it can interact with NFTs. Okay, so let's see. So this is my blog post. And yeah, at the top of it, I talk about more big picture concepts. But down below, I go into detail about how NFTs as a computer science are a very unique thing. And everyone can see that tab I was sharing, or yeah, that looks good, hopefully. Anyway, so right here in the blog post, I show a link to a query site called Block Scout, and it gets kind of confusing because there's a bunch of query sites, but all the stuff is on one chain, and then these secondary query sites look at the chain and they make it a user readable interface. So this particular one is for a chain called XDAI. And so this was done by the Future Of group of people, Amber Case, those people, and the Unlock Protocol. So anyway, so going down to clause 9, as I talk about here in the blog post, we can take this address, and this is my wallet's address, but if you had a wallet, you would have an address like this. And then we put it into clause 9, and we get an answer about whether the person owns this particular NFT or not. And this NFT is used kind of like a key to open a door. So it's used for Discord. So people can go into a certain Discord room, and if this Boolean says true. So instead of hosting something on the cloud with Amazon or something like that, which could maybe give this answer as well, this is something that exists outside of any particular organization. It's decentralized. Great. Okay, so now I'm going to go into something that's more common. This is using Ethereum instead of the DAI network. So I'm sure quite a few people have heard about Ethereum. And so, yeah, it uses Etherscan instead of that other one called Block Scout. But Etherscan is doing the same thing as Block Scout. And with this, here's the code, and it's a very simple contract. But then if we go into read contract right here, and we query it, it'll get us how much Ether is in this account. So this code is, there's not very much code here, so we can copy it. And then we go into something called remix. And if we make a new file, just example, Sol, and we just copy paste that code that was there, then we can compile it. And that worked. And then we can deploy it. And when we deploy it, we have basically just copied this contract that's already here. But that'll all take. So anyone with access to a computer can sign up for an account, get an account, and then deploy script on the internet. That's not, they don't have to pay Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or Heroku or any of that. And they can have some script that they can read information off of, or they can write information. And then in this particular example, I didn't put any write information there. But as just a straight up computer science, that's how in my blog post, I say that EVM is this kind of universal computer at once. And so that's what I mean by that, is that anyone can put up a bit of code and they don't have to go to a particular cloud service provider. They can just put out that code to this decentral, really protocol system. And then many people are maintaining this protocol system throughout the world. And so it'll just, whatever code they put up will stay there. So going into a little more detail, because of that just sort of basic computer capacity, some really interesting stuff can happen. This is an example of someone who put up some science research and sold it for 13 ETH, which is at this point $40,000. And so if we read what this person is selling, they're saying by them buying the manuscript, they've funded independent replication of a theory. So they're confirming science theory information using this exact same underlying protocol. Instead of usually what's in the media with NFTs is art and all the stuff that's the most pop culture related. But this example is something that's not going to get that much news on pop culture, but funding this kind of replication of theories and such is very important to confirm science. And obviously there's other ways to pay for that, but that's just one example. And then so here is getting more into that, into it just being a way to interact with writing and literature. This is called a write race, and it's basically a blog, but people have to be voted in to get into the blog. And so people see as an example, this person had 84 plus votes, separate people voting for them. And then they got this 15,000 or so votes so that they could get into the top 10. And now these people can actually start writing on this blog. So whoever gets into this has been validated by the community. And then what they can do with it as well is as they write the blog. Here's someone who writes blogs often on this site. So he's already gotten in the top 10 a while back. So in this one, it's just a normal blog post. And he tries to explain what NFTs are, like a lot of blog posts are doing these days. But down here with this one, he's decided to make this one into an NFT. So if we look at it, people I don't think have bid on it yet, so no one wants to buy this. But at any point, somebody could decide, I want to buy this particular blog post. And so people like Vitalik, whose blog posts have become very important, especially certain posts. Some individuals might want to have the prestige of saying, yeah, I own that blog post. And Matt was actually the person who did sell that other manuscript for now around 40K US. And so here's me on OpenSea, and this is one of many places that people can sell NFTs. So one of the nice things about selling NFTs is it's not so much a walled garden, is that there are a variety of different markets. So if you don't like OpenSea, there's other options. And one NFT I minted, and now this NFT is using a system that doesn't do proof of work. So when people say NFTs they cost a lot of energy, they're talking about the Ethereum mainnet. But this one is a Matic network, so it's proof of stake, or I think maybe even something less energy intensive than that, to validate these NFTs. So they don't sell as much as well because they don't have that mainnet prestige or what have you, but they're also not nearly as hard on the environment. So there's all this nuance to this NFT world, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So anyway, so this picture is showing how when there was runaway, people were trying to use the machine too much. So it'd be kind of like if you had too many tabs open on your browser, your computer would start to slow down just because it had too many tabs open. The way that remedied itself is this thing called gas, which is basically every time you use the net, you have to pay for it. It went so high, it went way beyond what it has ever gotten to since, that is what moderated the system. So instead of like your laptop, if you ignore the tabs too much and run away too much, you'll have to just restart your laptop and maybe unplug it from the wall, plug it back in, because this virtual machine, or just think about it like the operating system on your laptop. That's what a virtual machine is traditionally. But because this virtual machine is a distributed virtual machine on many computers at once, it it had a very different way of engaging with that problem. No one had to unplug or anything like that. People just started to back off on putting in their processes because the processes were just economically not doable. And then the final thing I wanted to demo is, so this is called an amulet, and the amulets are something that I've been having fun with. If I can get back to my user. But the amulets are fairly low level, so they're just text as NFT, and they're playing around with the idea of a hash. The reason why I bring them up here is because it's not really possible to make an amulet without doing some computer programming. And mainly what that computer programming is to scan pre-existing text, and the occasional pre-existing text that is an amulet. Then you look through that and then figure out which ones you want to actually turn into an amulet. So, for instance, one particular amulet I minted, I went to a library that had just .txt files, and then scrubbed them to find a something that was an amulet. Now, all this stuff was public domain, but the questions arise: did I have the right to do that scrubbing? Especially just a regular person, regular artist, just having fun. So I wasn't an entity or what have you. So that's one question. And then also a question is, within Creative Commons licenses, so this one was public domain, so it should be fine that I use the content. But for Creative Commons licenses, which Creative Commons licenses are okay with someone doing this amulet type of thing? So I guess the main point of my presentation is that so many people are doing art in the NFT space, and a lot of the art is brand new types of art that interact with pre-existing copyright and all that in very interesting ways, that I think it's Creative Commons and at least should be looking at this to see how it can affect their licenses in surprising ways that so far Creative Commons hasn't had to deal with whatsoever. And again, quite a bit of this stuff is types of expressions that Creative Commons should encourage, but then exactly how. So yeah, here's the example of that amulet. Tight straps, his short trews to meet shiny boots drew. So I just took that phrase out of a book of poetry that's in public domain. But again, that book of poetry was in a library that was open to the internet, so I could do it. It was just a normal GET call, but nowhere did it say, this is explicitly allowable, that kind of thing. Yeah, so Jonathan, that's a really good question. That's I think really what we have to grapple with is a lot of this property ownership isn't based on pre-existing statute. It's based on people wanting to have things be property. Just imagine if, like, at the time before copyright, when people were just, let's think up something, and that thing they were thinking up eventually became copyright. Because of the technological abilities, people are able to do that to some extent. The main reason why is because there's this possession element that's now there. So because people have keys that they can actually just physically hold, that saying that 9/10 of the law is possession, that's now starting to interact with copyright to some extent. So if everyone agrees that a particular thing that can be possessed represents a piece of property, as what's happening with this manuscript, then that's what they're agreeing to. And so, yeah, we don't really have a IP statute paradigm to deal with it. It's sui generis, but it seems, considering how much economic trading is happening and how much this stuff is continuing to evolve, whether we agree or not, people are treating these things as IP assets and trading them as such. So we might say, well, there's nothing there underlying, and within the copyright paradigm, and that might be true, but because of this real world possession that people have, they can say, well, that doesn't really matter. We've all agreed that there is value here, and since there is this core scarcity, we can agree to that. Which is one of the reasons why in my blog post, I say this like two-sided coin with Sarah Zucker, where the meme aspect of it is just totally Creative Commons open, but then there's the NFT aspect of it, that just because Sarah says, yeah, this NFT is the actual unique object out of it all. Everything else isn't unique, but this particular version of it is the unique one. So Sarah says that, and then the arts community all says that as well. And so that's what they agree to. So there are going to be times where a marketplace folds and people decide, oh no, there's a contract that it doesn't matter anymore. And so then it will lose it could very well lose its property value, because on the copyright side of things, it is a open Creative Commons license and all that. But at least people will know that on the copyright side, it's an open Creative Commons license and all that. So they can't rely on using copyright law to try to create a form of property after the crypto form of property that they were relying on somehow fell through. So yeah, one of the key things with these amulets, that's actually is really important, little nuance. These amulets, anyone can go and do what I just did in that demo, right? I took a bunch of open script and I just remade the contract, just a whole nother contract, but just with the same script. So the thing that helps these have value, a lot of these things like the amulets, if they're collections largely, where it's highly valuable, is that they come from a particular contract. So that contract is itself unique. So somebody, again, can make a whole nother amulet set, just copy paste the open code, but then it would have a different contract name on the chain. It would be another hash that would just be different to give it that unique identifier. And so then the community would have to decide, well, do we want to have that brand new contract type, or do we want to honor the original one? So the fact there are timestamps baked into all this, that helps. So people can go, well, this contract is that duplication of this other contract, because we can see which one came first. But generally also there's just a community that is there and has already been trading. And so they put their money in that original contract, and so they're motivated to do that. And indeed, the unplugging the computer situation that I was talking about, where gas prices went so high that it wasn't like you having a bunch of tabs on your personal computer that it just freezes and you have to restart it. People just stop doing the processes. That's true, but there was an instance where the original DAO was hacked into, and people lost a lot of money. And so then the Ethereum instant that's constantly running, the deciding communities, one just went, what happened, and people lost money, and too bad. We just have to be true to what the past has been. Another group went, no, you know what? This is such a major thing. We can actually just fork a completely different machine. And the people who eventually won the day are the people who forked. So in that way, they actually did kind of restart the computer or reverse time. But the only way that was possible was through community consensus. So a lot of the ways that the property is developing in this space is this community consensus type. But the questions arise, how is copyright going to interact with that? And so Creative Commons license could be really useful in saying, well, it's not at all going to interact with that. In the community space, just work with it as crypto as you always have been. But then you don't have to be afraid that someone in your community is going to come in later with litigation over another form of IP that you weren't really thinking about. So, it depends on what the communities want to do. Sometimes they're actually, the whole thing they're buying, the underlying asset is the copyright. And that's what the NFT is relating to. And it's just a way to basically like a library to just store evidence and like a data room kind of thing. So because it's really NFT stands for a non-fungible token, but then token is not just like token in a currency sense, but in the larger something that conveys meaning sense. And so it's actually much more about library science and namespace than the original thing might confer. Jonathan, do you want to pop on stage? I think I can invite you. We've got another 9 minutes or so, and it'd be nice to have someone to have a back and forth with, because this is so new. It's hard to just sort of like speak into the nothingness to see where people are at. I don't know how to invite you, but maybe you can request to come on stage if you'd like to.
Do you have me now? Can you hear me now? Can anyone hear me? It looks like Kyle can't hear me. Ah, okay. So Kyle, I was just giving an example. I read that Tim Berners-Lee sold an NFT for the original code of the internet, and I just wonder what that, I think what your discussion about new form of IP and a community, a consensus view of what it means to own this new form of IP is a really interesting idea, and it might have a place in the future. It seems like, I wonder how it connects, though, to traditional rights like copyright. Tim Berners-Lee selling an NFT for the original code of the internet whoever bought that doesn't have the right to do any of the things that people usually do when they own code. They don't have the right to stop other people from using that code or rights of copying or anything. What they have is bragging rights that they paid some money for the right to brag. We've lost Kyle. I don't really need to be alone here. He's on the session. Okay. He hit his face. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you're. Listen, could I bookmark another question? The other thing I don't understand is why are all these cool things that you were showing, the amulets and the new forms of art and everything? I don't really understand why they're on a blockchain. It seems to be like they could be on a website. What is the advantage of a blockchain? Anyway, I will now leave so Kyle can jump back on.